Paper-based customs declarations are accepted by customs authorities. But these are welcomed by some authorities more than others. And although paper-based customs declarations are now much less common in many parts of the EU, they are still available for use at HMRC. And I find they are a useful learning tool. So I still want to use them in my videos. In this video, I take a leisurely scroll through a paper declaration, spending a few moments looking at various parts of a paper declaration. And hopefully and in effect, laying the groundwork for future videos. In later videos, armed with more knowledge, I hope to revisit the C88 form, to see how to use some of the boxes on the paper declaration. But that is for another time, another video. For now, simply sit back and enjoy. Lots of interesting stuff. We'll take a quick scroll through the C88, the UK Single Administrative Document. After that, we look at systems in use, systems not in use, as well as a wealth of miscellanea related to goods movements in the Brexit transitional period. And so, paper-based declarations. So previously, we discussed making declarations using electronic data processing techniques in CHIEF and CDS. We're back on the Taxation and Customs Union section of the EU website. Scrolling down, we see that, in specific cases, a customs declaration may be lodged using means other than electronic data processing techniques. In writing, on a single administrative document, SAD. Orally, or by means of an act, replacing a customs declaration. These are listed down here. Oral declarations. Nothing to declare options, green channel etc. The form, known as the Single Administrative Document, SAD, is used for customs declarations by traders in the EU, Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Turkey, the Republic of North Macedonia and Serbia. It is composed of a set of 8 copies, each with a different function. So, in the UK, the equivalent of the SAD is the HMRC Form C88. How do I access the UK Form C88? Jump to https://www.gov.uk/import-and-export-single-administrative-document-full/import-set-C88-1-8. Single Administrative Document Full 8-Part Set, C88, 1-8. Use Form C88 to allow the exportation and importation of goods. In an earlier video, we listed items that can be found in a declaration. And we see them here as well. So, quick skim. And we see spaces to be filled in, Box 2, detailing consignor, Box 8, consignee, and 14, representative, including space for the EORI number. 16 country of origin. 17 country of destination. Above that, 10 country of first destination. We discussed ENS in a previous video. You might need to submit an ENS at the country of first destination. 31 packages, description of goods. Commodity code 33. Procedure 37. Quota 39. We discussed these, and supplementary units, Box 41, in Part 1 of this course. Additional info 44. Calculations of taxes 47. Intended offices of transit 51. Guarantee 52. And more. So there are 8 similar copies, each going to a different destination. And what looks like examination and incident sheets at the end. So, your customs handler will fill this form out for you. Or, you can get help and information with this C88 form. Or any aspect of imports, exports, or customs relief. From HMRC. Imports and exports. General enquiries. At https://www.gov.uk/government/organizations/customs/trade-and-excises-enquiries. Here we see help can be obtained online. Via web chat. Phone. And right at the bottom. Post. Great. No doubt we'll revisit the C88 form in oncoming videos. Next, Transitional Simplified Procedures, TSP. So, prior to the 30th of January, 2020, we saw mention of Transitional Simplified Procedures, or TSP, that would take effect after a no-deal Brexit. We saw that in a no-deal Brexit, you will need to follow these rules if you import from anywhere outside the UK. Rules called TSP or Transitional Simplified Procedures. Take care to note that TSP has now been suspended. Suspended. That's nice. But what was TSP anyway? Okay, a quick side step. Prior to Brexit, the ordinary simplified procedures, collectively referred to as CFSP, are used to import goods from countries outside of the EU customs territory, but not from inside the EU. Why? The principles of the EU mean that trade between member states, in the single market, is tariff-free for EU goods that are in free circulation. We discuss free circulation in a later video. For now, no need to use CFSP for EU goods in free circulation, because these do not require tariffs or declarations to be submitted. And prior to the 30th of January, 2020 and the Brexit election, a no-deal Brexit would have meant that all UK trade sectors would face new tariffs when trading with the EU. In this case, new declarations, and in high volumes, would have been predicted for UK trade with the EU, and simplified procedures could have hastened such customs processing. And from a service management point of view, fast processing would be critical. As such, I'm guessing that these transitional simplified procedures would have been used, hand in hand with the new UK temporary tariff, also in readiness for a no-deal Brexit. We explored the UK temporary tariff in part 1 of this course. The temporary tariff incorporates WTO tariffs and rules that would be adopted after a no-deal Brexit. Okay. Why are the no-deal simplified procedures called transitional simplified procedures? The transitional nature indicates a trial period, where HMRC will consult with trade sectors and monitor customs performances, so as to find and make any adjustments necessary to improve the system, eradicate teething problems, etc. But as we see, TSP is now suspended. Okay, great. So we've moved a couple of weeks forward, and we're on guidance. Importing standard goods using transitional simplified procedures. However, now that the UK exit agreement has been signed off, and a trade agreement is being negotiated, we see that TSP has indeed been suspended. With regard to TSP, this guidance was withdrawn on the 30th of January 2020. Transitional simplified procedures are currently suspended. You will not need to use this between February and December 2020. I guess what this means is that in the eventuality that trade negotiations fail with the EU and we are left with a no-deal Brexit, TSP and the UK temporary trade tariff may be revived and put into use as the main method of trade with the European Union. I must admit that this feels like an indication of the level of confidence that the UK government has for the future with respect to a forthcoming trade agreement with the EU, as well as new trade agreements with other parts of the world. Also, we might guess at confidence with technicalities. No need for transitional procedures or any temporary tariff accommodations. With Chief being phased out, we might guess that HMRC is confident about fully absorbing the terms and data from any new trade agreements directly into the trade systems used by the UK. Trade systems such as the UK trade tariff, as well as the new Customs Declaration Service, CDS, and Customs Freight Simplified Procedures, CFSP. Perhaps all ready to go after the UK exit transition period, or implementation period if you prefer, expires on the 31st of December 2020. Let's quickly check the current rules for importing goods from EU countries. Starting to import. Scrolling down. Imports from the EU are called acquisitions. Moving goods from EU countries. For the time being, you don't need to pay duty on union goods, but you need to pay VAT. If the goods are supplies or for use in your business, you can reclaim the VAT. Standard goods do not need a license. Controlled or excise goods do. We see goods like weapons, animal products, and medicine down here. Make sure you meet your licensing requirement. We see mention of an Intrastat declaration down here. These are declarations using data from VAT returns, but that are submitted for statistical purposes. Organizations or individuals with high-value goods movements need to register for Intrastat. If, in the last calendar year, your business either moved more than £250,000 worth of goods to countries in the EU, or received more than £1.5 million worth of goods from countries in the EU, then you need to register for Intrastat. Although services and goods you're taking out of the UK temporarily are not required for Intrastat reporting. We can see a list of goods from this link that are purchases, sales, also hire forward/leased goods, contracted goods, free goods, goods for construction, goods transferred between company branches, processed goods, and goods moved out of the UK to be lost or destroyed. Okay. Back. So, after the UK exit transition period, all EU trade will follow rules for importing goods from the rest of the world. If we take a look at rules for importing goods from the rest of the world, we get starting to import again. But this time, when we scroll down, we see 3 things. 1. Get an EOI. 2. Find the commodity code. And we've mentioned these 2 things in previous videos already. So what if I want to make electronic declarations myself, rather than using a customs handler? How do I apply to use Chief, or CDS, or any of the other types of software used for imports and exports? Okay, great. We see the 3rd item. Declare your imports to customs. Click that. Customs declarations for goods you bring or receive into the UK or EU. Okay, let's look at that. A bit below, and we see that you are reminded that you can get somebody to complete declarations for you, otherwise you will need appropriate software. Speaking of which, here we see a link to apply for access to Chief. And at some stage, this might be changed for CDS. But if we click that, we get a form. Apply to access customs handling of import and export freight, C1800. Be aware that you need Adobe Reader to complete it. Use Form C1800 to access customs handling of import and export freight, Chief, and to provide your full contact details, required for linking to the Chief badge. Moving on. What about applying for exports? Okay. In guidance. Register for the National Export System to make an export declaration. We see you can find out what you need to register for the National Export System, NES, to make export declarations. In any case, before applying directly, be sure that you have all the necessary details to hand. You will need an EOI number and a government gateway account. And we pointed out how to get these in an earlier video. You will need your VAT and business details, NI number etc. for this stage. Also, get a duty deferment account, required for simplified procedures. And we cover this in a later video. If you are submitting export declarations yourself, we see you need to have chief approval. The chief badge role identifies who you are and defines permissions controlling what you are allowed to do. You can elevate your chief profile by achieving an authorized economic operator customs simplification status. You can get faster access and do more with this. Sounds good. But it might be wise to contact HMRC General Enquiries first to find exactly what you need.